Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back with another video from Annie News, continuing with the cut content series of ReZero Season 3. I do believe this is like mid-season end, and there's going to be a bit of a break in between, so I think he's going to be doing more Dan Matchy videos as that is continuing. But yeah, this episode was so good. I loved it. There's a lot going on, and I love that it just ended with establishing where everyone's going to fight, and you just know next bit is just going to start with all that kicking off, and that's going to be cool. Couple of things that we learned from the cut content that was previous cut content videos that was mentioned in this episode, which I think is cool. Like Wilhelm's wife, the reveal there, and who the other guy is. Not that we know him, but and all Otto, and all these other things going on. So yeah, let's see what was left out of this episode.
Only 8 short episodes. We've got 4 archbishops attacking, Subaru dealing
They weren't short episodes. The first episode was an hour and a half.
with phenomenon he can't even understand,
Oh, mate. When he was taking away the curse, and it was just like, wow.
Amelia captured, Beatrice in a coma, Garfield dealing with some serious personal issues,
A lot. I feel so sorry for Garfield in this series.
Wilhelm also dealing with some serious personal issues, Reinhardt being Reinhardt, Krusch permanently disfigured, Al being sus, Mimi and her brothers close to death, Julius lacking self-confidence, then Priscilla somehow coming out on top as the unexpected heroine. There's also Felix thinking he's useless, as well as Otto scurrying about dropping bombshells proving he's best boy all over again.
The thing where he mentions the tome and everyone's like, what?
So, yeah, it's a lot. So much so that the anime has had to gloss over a lot of it. This unfortunately means the side characters don't get the development they deserve, but that's exactly why I'm here. So, if you want to see what from the novel didn't make it into the finale, stick around because I'll be going through all of it.
Sick.
I also highly recommend watching last week's video too, because if there was any episode to define who Subaru is as a character,
That was it, yeah.
this one does it perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
It also reveals quite a few secrets you might want to know about Al. Episode 58, The Person You Will Fall in Love With, covering chapters 4 and 5 from volume 18 of the light novel. When Reinhardt came in and apologized for being late, a simple sorry wasn't enough for everyone to just forgive him. Sure, it would have been easy to just accept it and smooth things over, but because Reinhardt's presence was such an invaluable asset, everyone couldn't help but wonder how the fights would have turned out had
If he was
been there.
there, yeah, man.
It was a thought that made it difficult to hide their true feelings. Subaru was the only one actually ready to move on, so after jokingly calling him out and making light of his late arrival, he had helped everyone else to voice how they really felt. He basically framed it like an opportunity they'd never get again. If there was ever any time to express their grievances to a person like Reinhardt, this was likely the only time they'd get to do it. So, aside from everyone else giving him an earful, Subaru's own complaint was that he waited until after the speech. If there was any person who could fill the masses with courage like
yeah.
how he did, Subaru believed that person was Reinhardt. Of course, Reinhardt naturally disagreed because to him, any words he might say would be received completely different. He wanted to make it clear what Subaru did was something only he could do. Now, with Reinhardt providing what was essentially an army's worth of reinforcements, Subaru could approach the situation with the newfound confidence they didn't really have before. His presence alone was enough to reassure him that they could win this.
Yeah, like Reinhardt does tip the balance here, like, doesn't he?
Reinhardt did have to do a bit of explaining first though, along with Otto just to satisfy everyone's curiosity. The full details behind that are something I think I'll save for a different video, but to briefly summarize why it is Heinkel took Felt hostage in the first place, well, you'd be surprised to know it had nothing to do with the witch cult at all.
Oh.
He wasn't working with them in any capacity whatsoever.
So is he just a prick?
The actual reason was something far worse, and it was all because Heinkel was a coward. All he wanted was a way to keep himself safe, and his best bet towards that was to be near Reinhardt.
So, yeah, he's just being a prick.
So, what better way to keep Reinhardt put than to take Felt hostage and limit his movements? That was the logic under which Heinkel was operating by.
God.
The whole thing was one of Reinhardt's greatest failures, and the disappointment he felt for himself was truly immeasurable. It was pain evident by his expressions showing that he truly was hurt by his own shortcomings. Otto would then go on to recount what happened with himself next, but since most of that went how we saw in earlier episodes, the only thing that needs mentioning is how he escaped.
Yes,
As
please.
it turns out, just like how it was for Anastasia, Kiritaka's private forces had come in and saved him.
Ah,
They arrived as reinforcements when they heard the tower was being sieged, recognized Otto as an emissary of the Amelia camp, then did everything in their power to create an opening for him.
right, okay, thank goodness, because that was something that didn't make sense to me. Great, cool.
This unfortunately came at the cost of their lives, but once again this white dragon scale force had proved their effectiveness. They truly were the cornerstone of Pristella's defenses. The fact they couldn't be repaid pained Otto greatly though, since as a proud merchant who always repaid his debts, knowing this one couldn't be settled really bothered him. It had led him to the decision to pay it back by guaranteeing the fate of the city. It was the least he could do for the ones who saved him. Moving on to the discussion about the 4 demands now, the tome was currently in the possession of Darts, the famed restorer who Otto had sought assistance from.
Right, okay, so that's who's with, because he just said he left it with someone, didn't he?
If anyone could bring this book back from the charred ashes it currently was, Darts was the specialist who could do it. He was proficient in magic that could restore it from practically nothing.
Okay.
So, with Otto having dropped the tome's remains off by him, that meant its current location was Dart's workshop. Beatrice was explained to be the artificial spirit after, confirming Julius's suspicion that something was different about her. This made Subaru a little bit worried, since if any spirit user could distinguish Beatrice just by looking at her, it meant she was in more danger than he thought. Subaru felt he wouldn't be able to leave her side due to the risk of someone possibly realizing who she was. Since the witch cult hadn't identified her by name yet, it was of the utmost importance to keep her identity secret. Luckily for Subaru, only a spirit user as skilled as Julius could tell, so there really wasn't anything to worry about. Subaru then went on to confirm the silver-haired elf was Amelia, leading to a very over-the-top proclamation that he would be the one to save her.
Of course.
This wasn't the same as all the other times he usually did, since this time Subaru shouted proudly that only he would be the one to marry Amelia. It was a bold statement that led to a comedic set of reactions from those around him. These were fairly expected, but what no one present expected themselves was for Subaru to express his feelings so explicitly and confidently. The one person whose reaction was unexpected was Julius and the deep thought he seemingly fell into. You see, where Subaru thought he'd find annoyance, he instead turned to find something almost like jealousy. There was an earnest yearning Subaru could sense behind Julius's contemplation. He never did say what it was that had him distracted, but something about Subaru's proclamation had led him to lose track of the conversation. Al would then go on to re-explain the message he got from Amelia, but something about him seemed different too. Ever since their intense exchange before the speech, Subaru found Al to be noticeably off. He wasn't carrying himself the same way he usually did. So Subaru actually proceeded to ask him about it, inquiring as to why he was being so sulky.
Oh.
He needed to know since they needed him for this upcoming fight. Since their last one didn't really go too well, Subaru wanted to make it clear that they needed his help now. It was a genuine request Al knew he couldn't deny, but the way he accepted it wasn't that great either. There was this chilling anger that Subaru could sense from behind it. A mysterious aggressiveness was attached to every single word he spoke. This was a wild rage Subaru knew he recognized before, but he couldn't remember from where he'd felt it. All he knew was that Al's hostility was something familiar.
God, I hope we get Al's reveal in the next one. I want to know. I mean, I don't want to know, if you know what I mean, but I hope it is what I said in the last one, where I think it's Subaru on a time loop from the future, you know, like as a return by death thing. Or, you know, and he's like an older version. Something like that.
Fortunately, Priscilla would enter to change that tone completely, bringing a whole new perspective to the conversation. It was as she got caught up, though, that Subaru would step out to handle some of his other conversations. So, first was Otto explaining why he did what he did, basically highlighting the level of concern he had for Amelia and Subaru. He was constantly thinking, planning, and observing in a way Subaru didn't even consider, saving him day after day without him even realizing it.
Oh, that was class.
This was something Subaru couldn't even begin to express his gratitude for, but Otto would stop him before he could even try. What he needed to focus on now was finding Darts and getting the tome back from him. Subaru's conversation with Wilhelm was next, starting with a friendly warning about what might happen when dealing with Felix. You see, since he was still blaming everyone for not helping Krush, Subaru was one of the people he probably resented most right now. As the only one who could have prevented Krush's condition, The fact he didn't was something Felix couldn't really forgive him for yet. So there was a good chance Felix would say something he didn't really mean. A few insults that were just a reflection of the emotions he couldn't control right now. Wilhelm would then go on to discuss the necromancy problem, stating some interesting names pertaining to those who could be related to it. There was the hero of the demi-humans Libre Fermi, the great strategist Valga Cromwell, then the evil witch Sphinx who, just like Satella, carved her name into history with blood.
Oof.
These were the kingdom's greatest enemies from the demi-human war decades ago, the ones responsible for leading an army of the dead against them. Sphinx in particular was the worst because she alone killed indiscriminately on both sides. She had created an ocean of blood without even batting an eye. So, as a witch that Subaru had never heard of before, he was naturally curious to know how she was associated to the others.
Yeah, there is going to be some curiosity there, isn't there?
That's when Wilhelm would reveal she was only called a witch out of convenience, making her in existence likely different from those of the true witches. What that meant is that, unlike the other witches who, though dead, still somehow remain alive, Sphinx being destroyed in the war should mean she actually is dead.
Ah, okay.
How her magic remains is a different question, but it's likely the corpse soldiers are a result of her. Well, at least her specific taboo anyway. Now, the anime did well to explain the Estrella family rift after because it made clear where everybody's issues came from. Wilhelm blamed Reinhardt, Heinkel scorned Wilhelm, then Reinhardt took all of it silently. Only in time did Wilhelm start to blame himself. Since he was the one who convinced his wife to abandon the path of the sword, he believed it was him who caused the sword god to abandon her. He felt he caused a betrayal the sword god could never forgive, thus the reason it made her lose her divinity in battle. It was punishment for giving up on what she alone was blessed with. This brings us now to Krush, which was a scene I feel might have been a little bit rushed in the anime.
Oh, okay.
Reason being that a lot of Subaru's inner thoughts were left out.
Oh, alright, fair enough. Because I thought this was like something else. I was just like, whoa. I like how Subaru was still adamant on taking it all away, and then Chris was like, no, just go out there and just get it done.
He was deeply affected by the painful state Krush was in, and that made him start to wonder all sorts of questions. All doubted her virtue and looked down on her noble spirit, but none ever considered maybe she called him here for something else. No, he was instead selfishly bracing himself for the blame he felt was inevitable. So, when Krush revealed it was all out of concern for him, Subaru immediately became disgusted by his own gross level of pettiness. He couldn't believe his own short-sightedness when all Krush was doing was thinking about him. She was worried he might be afflicted with the same pain that she was. This was an unforgivable sin Subaru couldn't help but apologize for, leading to a reaction that had him reaching out to her. The contact which would reveal maybe Krush could be saved. The thing about Subaru being able to absorb the curse himself, though, was that whatever he took in wasn't equivalent to what he took out. With only Krush's left hand and part of her face being healed, Subaru's entire right arm had changed because of it. It showed this wasn't an equivalent exchange like how he thought. If anything, the exchange was something like 10 to 1 or more.
Like, but is his arm now the same as his leg? Like, is this dragon stuff just going to make him immortal? Like,
that being the case, if Subaru was to absorb Krush's curse in its entirety, it's likely no part of him would remain unaffected. This was a consequence he was more than willing to accept, though,
of course,
leading to an emotional exchange where Krush would have to tell Felix to stop Subaru. Of course, Felix wanted Krush better more than anyone, but even he couldn't go against her wishes right in front of her like that. It was a challenging decision that really tested his resolve. Subaru's too. This made Subaru's line at the end all the more impactful because despite all the pain Krush was currently going through, she was willing to bear it so that Subaru could follow through on it. If anything, it motivated Subaru to make sure he could. It was after that Wilhelm would ask if Subaru's right arm was truly okay, to which Subaru would respond just as you'd expect.
Yeah.
If all he got were these nasty scars, then that was a price he was willing to pay in order to save Krush. Sure, he was a bit reluctant to permanently disfigure himself, but if there truly was no other solution, then Subaru was ready to cover his entire body like this. He knew he would just have to apologize to Amelia, Rem, and Beatrice later. Either way, this whole thing was yet another mystery added to that body of his. There was Return by Death and his resistance to the witch factor, and now the curse of the beast fighting against the curse of the dragon blood. Subaru truly had no idea what it was going on inside of
Yeah,
him.
what is happening?
In any case, when returning to finalize the key parts of the plan, Subaru decided not to tell anyone what just happened with Krush, since he intended to save her whether people
Yeah, I thought it was odd that no one was questioning his arm because he literally raises the arm that's affected and was like, "Ah, let's go." No one was like, are you okay?
wanted him to or
What's
not.
going on
He
there?
decided to avoid any conflict and treat it as an ask for forgiveness instead of permission type situation. When Priscilla announced her bold move next, Subaru knew he had no right to contest it. If they had allowed Krush to fight before, then she was fine to do so as well. Besides, to Subaru, her power and swordsmanship was at
She's
least similar to that of
Pretty
Krush's.
beastly, like.
So, to even question or challenge her decision, well, that had led to some serious shade being thrown towards Krush. It was enough that Wilhelm felt the need to step in and defend her. Of course, Priscilla, being Priscilla, stood by her words and even doubled down. She truly believed anyone forced to leave before the main show had even started certainly wasn't fit to be the lead. She was expressing her disappointment in the person she thought was Krush. Anastasia was the one who had to calm things down, bringing the discussion back on course with regards to how Priscilla planned to beat Wrath. Well, as dangerous as it was, Priscilla made it clear she wouldn't have chosen a fight she knew she couldn't win. You see, with the very logic of the world proceeding in a way that was most convenient to her, Priscilla knew defeat wasn't even a possibility. It's why she could have absolute confidence in both her and Liliana's safety. Now, Reinhardt receiving the Blessing of Judgment, then using it to determine Liliana's power is pretty much as OP as you think it is. So, to answer your question, yes, Reinhardt can wish for whatever blessing he wants. Should he desire something when he needs it, then whether it be the gods, the world, or fate itself, something out there would make it happen. The limits of said blessings aren't exactly known, but the author has mentioned they're usually just minor buffs, not something totally game-changing like a blessing of teleportation.
I was gonna say, I feel like we're gonna see it pushed to the limit possibly when the season starts back up and he's fighting Greed. It's Greed, isn't it? He's fighting Greed.
There's really
What a weird guy as well. He's so strange.
no
Oh,
point trying to understand how it works though,
Greed is-
because at the end of the day, Reinhardt will just do whatever Reinhardt does. As for how Subaru perceived this power himself, the whole thing felt incredibly wrong. As amazing of an ability it was, he couldn't help but feel something was off about it. Now, to switch over to Liliana and her own meager blessing, this simply allows her to convey her feelings to others. Normally it's telepathy limited to those she's intimate with, but it seems singing has expanded that range to everyone. It was information Priscilla already claimed to know, so the fact everyone had gone to such great lengths just to verify it, well, that was simply absurd to her. It was a testament to the heroics Priscilla was putting on in her own way. She didn't need a blessing to determine Liliana could do this because she had already entrusted her fate to the fact she would. It was yet another display of her often overlooked ingenuity. Still, Subaru wanted to reduce any risk where he could because where Priscilla believed his concern to be completely misplaced, Subaru didn't want anyone to die. As much as it would have benefited him and the Amelia camp, Priscilla's death was not something any of them would celebrate. It was a firm stance that fully caught Priscilla by surprise. Moving on to who fought Lust. The reason Reinhardt felt the need to protest Wilhelm's decision is because his swirling bloodlust made it clear he wasn't in the right mind to. There was a clear demeanor which made Wilhelm seem focused on something other than the fight. This was what Reinhardt picked up on, leading to the attempted intervention we see in the anime.
yeah, I thought he clocked on to who she was, and that's why he was objecting. But then I didn't feel like there was enough emotion there, so... Right, that explains that. Cool.
This, however, only spurred Wilhelm to resolve himself more, unleashing the conviction of the Sword Devil through and through. He had this fierce grin along with a strong desire for battle, a confident attitude that I can only imagine was far different from what we got in the anime. The plea that finally convinced Reinhardt to let it go was Garfield's request to help Subaru. Since he too had to abandon his camp to repay his debt, Garfield could only beg for the help of someone who was stronger than him. It was a powerful display that showed he now accepted his weakness and the result of his failures. Development that's been pretty sidelined for Garfield. So, with all the matchups now decided, the last thing to do was distribute the conversation mirrors.
Wait, so... this is a bit... Would have been interesting to see that. reveal of what that character looks like. Alright.
With only 3 available and 4 teams in total, that meant they needed to be divided by importance. So the first went to Team Wrath since learning of her defeat was the most essential. The next to Team Greed since there was a good chance Reinhardt beats him quick, then the third to Team Lust due to the sheer amount of numbers she had. Reason being that if Reinhardt was to become available after beating Greed, then it would be good to know whether Team Lust needed his help or not. So this was the plan Subaru put together for them. A counterattack which had everyone all tense, up until Subaru made his declaration that they were going to win. That's where I'm going to end it for this video, so if you liked what you saw and want to see more, then leave a like and check out the previous episodes. I'll be covering the last bit of this episode in another video.
Cool.
A smaller second part to the finale that'll probably come out next week. I'll talk about it early on stream on Sunday too, so if you want to prove your ReZero knowledge and win some prizes, come join us over at Twitch or here on YouTube. But anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do.
So,
until next time.
ciao. Awesome. It's nice to, little bits, like, they're not integral, but it's nice to get that little extra, you know? Like, the whole learning about how Otto actually got out of that situation was cool, and all the other stuff. You know, like, questions I had, I was like, wait a minute, how? And then you get it in these, so that's cool. So we got one more, cool. We'll check that out when that comes out, and then I think I need to catch. There's a Dan Matchy one he's put out, but I don't think I've seen the episodes it's going on about, so I might do that and then check that out and then try and do the Dan Matchy ones as they come out, kind of thing. See how we go. Thanks for watching.